And Councilmember Mello.
Here.
You have 7 members present.
We didn't know we were going to have a surprise today. We have all 7 members present and a quorum. We'll have Councilmember Morell introduce himself in a little bit. Item number 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, our moment of silence, and our land acknowledgement. Our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by Truett Dupuy, a Science and Math Institute senior, and our land acknowledgement will be read by Josie Crosby, a Gig Harbor High School student. So will you all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, followed by a moment of silence dedicated to our men and women serving overseas in the military, and then the land acknowledgement. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe. The Puyallup tribe has lived on and stewarded these lands since time immemorial and continue to do so today. We recognize that the land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land.
Well, thank you, Josie, and thank you, Truett. We're grateful that you've made time to be with us and for your leadership this evening. Really want to thank everyone for being here. We're so grateful to be out of the County City building and out in community. This is certainly one of the more fun parts of our job. As is customary and tradition, when we are in district, we pass the gavel to the member whose district we're in. So for the rest of the meeting, we'll be passing the gavel to Chair Denson. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember Mello. I really appreciate the opportunity, and welcome to the District 7 in-district meeting. This is the first time in quite some time that District 7 has had its in-district meeting in the Tacoma area. As you may know, District 7 is very geographically diverse. We have North Tacoma, West Tacoma, Ruston, and then everything on the other side of the Narrows Bridge. So we're often out on the Key Peninsula or in Gig Harbor for the district meetings and not giving Tacoma some of the attention that I think it deserves. And when I thought about an issue area that I thought Tacoma residents might be interested in, the environment came right to mind. It was as something that the County Council certainly has a lot of influence over and a lot of activities that we are working on. So I hope that you will find this presentation interesting. I thank you for being here. I know it's a gorgeous day, of course, here in Tacoma, but this is being recorded as well, so I know other folks will enjoy it later on. Moving through the agenda, and I will get to introductions, don't worry. I want to just ask the council's permission to shift the agenda just a little bit, moving section 7, which is proclamations, recognitions, and awards, towards the end, putting it after the community forum, which is section 9. Does anyone have any objections to that?
Would that be like moving into page 122, I think?
Very funny, Councilmember Campbell. Now, we're going to move real quickly through this agenda today. There's a lot of great information, but we want to give plenty of opportunities for the variety of things happening in District 7. I wanted to really thank the Science and Math Institute. I think Director Hall is here. If you could stand up, I saw you walk in. She and her staff, as well as all of Tacoma School District, have been so accommodating in allowing us to use this amazing space. So thank you for working with us and with my assistant, John Jollyboys. I also want wanted to thank Metro Parks, and we have Commissioner Andrea Smith here with us. Andrea, if you want to say, Andrea's going to talk a little bit later, but we are in one of Metro Parks' beautiful parks. We're in the city of Tacoma, as you know, and I know that we have Deputy Mayor Hines, as well as Council Member Christina Walker here with us. If you guys could stand up, thank you so much for being here. And then I saw that we have Gig Harbor Council Member Roger Henderson. He's in the back. Thank you for making the trek, as well as some of my Key Peninsula friends. So we have, in terms of elected officials, we have Stan Moffitt, who's a fire commissioner out on the Key Peninsula. And we have Barb Rowland, who is on our Key Peninsula Land Use Advisory Council. And then last I saw Congressman Marilyn Strickland's staff person Liz Larder is here as well. Oh, and I missed Liz. You want to wave? Thank you for being here. She's a great supporter of the Tacoma area. And then I missed a Metro Parks commissioner because I didn't see him walk in. Matt Maurer is here. There he is. A new Metro Parks commissioner. Did I miss any elected officials? Hopefully not. I'll blame my son Truett in the back, who is in charge of that. Thank you guys for being here. I do want to thank our volunteers, Josie Crosby and Truett Dupuis, for helping out. So there's a lot on the agenda. We're going to move through these presentations really quickly, and you'll understand if council members refrain from asking questions. I told them if they had a really hot question, of course they could ask, but they're going to try to refrain and follow up with the presenters after the meeting so we can get through on time. I want to make sure that everyone has a word game. It looks an awful lot like bingo, but it is not, and we don't want anyone yelling bingo out during the presentations. But as you hear these words being mentioned, mark them off, and at the end we'll have you pass them in for an amazing prize. Is Councilmember Jensen here? Oh, there she is. Did you bring the amazing prize? This is an amazing prize donated by Ginger Krieger, who's a resident of Ruston and a volunteer, and actually who is responsible for working with Metro Parks and creating the gorgeous garden as you come in and out of Point Defiance Park. So you'll see that as you're leaving. And this is a mini version of it, so very, very cool. And that will be the prize tonight. All right, we're going to move to messages. Did I ever do the consent agenda? I think I did. There's nothing on the consent agenda. Messages from executive and other county elected officials. Executive Dan Meyer sends his regrets. He couldn't be here tonight, and I don't see any other county elected officials. So we will move right on. There are no ordinances or resolutions, so we're going to get to the good stuff of the meeting, which is other business, and we're going to look at Pierce County's environmental watershed. So I'd like to invite up, oh, I'm sorry, I did forget introductions. Before we launch into that, I'm going to do real quick introductions. And why don't we start at the far end with Councilmember Herrera. He's going to introduce himself, the district he is from, and tell us his favorite tree.
All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Herrera, Pierce County Council, District 2. The area I cover is Edgewood, Milton, Puyallup, Sumner, and South Hill. And my favorite tree is the sacred cedar tree.
Councilmember Morell is the tree.
Yes, I am Dave Morell. I represent District 1. District 1 is part of South Hill that Paul doesn't claim. And then I've got Graham. I drop down into Ording. And then I've got a lot of the small towns, South Prairie, Wilkeson, Carbonado, Lake Tapps, Bonnie Lake. And then I go up to Buckley and then jump over Enumclaw, and I've got Greenwater and a little ski resort up at Crystal Mountain. So I've got a lot of trees, and mine is the oak tree, of course, and so appreciate the opportunity to show up in attire.
Thank you for making it fun.
Thank you. Dave Morell is my favorite tree. Marty Campbell, District 5, which is right in the center of Pierce County, starting up with the points, Browns Point, Dash Point, northeast Tacoma, parts of Fife Heights, Fife Riverside area, through Summit Waller down to North Clover Creek, Collins area, back up Parkland, Midland, and also Port of Tacoma and East Tacoma, where I live. Councilmember Denson, thank you very much for bringing us to this beautiful building. There's actually a connection between the land that was able to be swapped with the school district to be able to, the school district to build in a park here, so the parks could build a community center on the east side on school land. And so this actually was key to us getting a community center on the east side, having a building here. And former city council member Ushka pushed that through, or on the school board at the time. Favorite tree, having grown up in Nebraska, it is required as a young Nebraskan in 4th grade that you make the annual trip to Arbor Lodge, J. Sterling Morton's, the true home of Arbor Day, and so we're inundated with types of trees, and so I couldn't just choose one, but as I was in my backyard today, our dogwood was blooming beautifully. And in my yard right now, the dogwood would be my favorite tree, and the pine tree that's dripping sap on my car would be my least favorite tree.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Mello, and I serve and represent the communities of University Place, Fircrest, and many different neighborhoods of Tacoma, including downtown, central Hilltop Tacoma, South Tacoma, and share the east side with Councilmember Campbell and South End Tacoma with Councilmember Campbell. And I did not coordinate with Councilmember Campbell. My favorite tree is the dogwood. I love the bark of the dogwood, and I love the different colors of the dogwood. And I get to see many on my walk into work every day. So thank you for hosting us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Janie Hitchin. I have the pleasure and honor of serving District 6, which is Lakewood, DuPont, Steilacoom. I have some islands, Ketron, Anderson, and McNeil Island, and then I represent Joint Base Lewis McChord, and then where I live, the best half of Parkland. I have an ongoing debate with Councilmember Campbell. And my favorite tree is the Madrona, because it just was always such a mystery to me, and I loved seeing it go through all its many changes.
Good evening. I am Amy Kruger. I represent the 3rd Council District. I have lots of nature there as well. I have Mount Rainier heading west on through Eatonville, McKenna, north up to Roy, then headed back east through Frederickson, and I go to Meridian, down to Graham. I have the west side of Graham, and then I have Kapowson. And my favorite tree, I had to pick the apple tree. It's what I used to climb when I was a little girl.
All right, now I'm going to take this opportunity to thank and introduce our staff. We have at the far end our clerk, Brenna Price. Thank you so much. Over here we have Susan Long, our legal counsel, Julie Murray, our chief of staff, Brian Dominique, our communications manager, and Jair Weinsberry, our communications coordinator. Jair is going to be in charge of keeping us on track with the PowerPoint today, and you will see Brian snapping some pictures throughout the meeting. All right, now we are ready to move to other business. And
wait, what's your favorite tree?
Oh, the tulip poplar is my favorite tree. I just think the leaves are just so beautiful. All right, so I'd like to welcome up at this time Ryan Dix. Ryan is the Pierce County Planning and Public Works Sustainable Resources Administrator, and he's going to give us a quick overview of the Pierce County Sustainability Plan.
Good afternoon, if y'all can hear me. Thank you. Ryan Dix. I'm the Sustainable Resources Administrator for Pierce County. And if we can go next slide, we're going to go quite quick here. We already had our land acknowledgement, but it is important that we acknowledge these tribal governments, their respective roles today in protecting and taking care of these lands and resources. And our group is very committed to working together in stewardship of their homeland where we mutually work and reside. So I don't want to go quick through that. But it's, anyway, this is an important part of our work, is making sure that the tribes are consulted government to government in every opportunity we have. So next slide. Our division of Public Works does garbage and recycling. We do environmental education. We do the commute trip reduction work. So Ride Together Pierce is our effort to get people to out biking, walking, taking transit. And then the thing we're going to talk about today is the Sustainability 2030 Plan, our effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Pierce County. So we can go next slide and next slide. Obviously, for all of us who live here, I started this job amazingly almost 15 years ago, and I remember reading a University of Washington report about these are the things in the future that could happen because of climate change, and lo and behold, 15 years later, we have seen all of these things happen. And so you don't have to, take someone's word on it. Like, we all breathe smoke lots of times in the summer. And so these are the things that we're concerned about. Obviously, we're getting more rain, increased ocean acidity. The carbon pollution ends up in our saltwater and actually makes it more acidic. Sea level rise happening slowly, but certainly consideration with Port Tacoma and other parts of our county. We're getting more rocks coming off of Mount Rainier as the glaciers melt. The rocks come down. It takes about, depending where they come off, 60 to 120 years to get from there to Port Tacoma in some cases. So the rocks are coming. Parts of our rivers are higher than they used to be. That creates flooding. We're also getting stronger storms, so more water. So a lot of this is going to be a water problem. And then water causes landslides, extreme heat and wildfire as well. So these are the things we're concerned about. What do those look like? Well, if we go to the next slide, we've seen all these things happen. These are all Pierce County examples. So we know this is happening, and we have to, as county government, we have to be working to make our infrastructure resilient to try to deal with these common issues that we're facing more and more often. So next slide. We also have to understand that the impacts are not equal. Depending on how many resources you have, you may be able to work your way through certain problems like a smoke storm or like flooding. But if you don't have those resources, it's going to tax those communities much more than communities that have financial well-being to deal with these problems. And so it's very important for us to acknowledge that we're not all on a level playing ground in terms of how we handle climate change and how we are resilient to it. Next slide. The great thing about greenhouse gas reduction is all the other things that happen. It's not you're doing that, but you're also getting economic benefits. You're getting public health. One of the things people don't talk about, but just solving climate change alone would be paid for by the public health benefits. Just the health benefits to human beings, letting them live longer, not going to the doctor, not missing work, all those benefits there would pay for the cost of actually solving these problems. Obviously, we're, as I talked about, promoting equity, trying to make sure that everyone benefits from greenhouse gas reduction. We're working on improving air quality, which we've done in the county pretty well, and then improving water quality as well. So there's just a lot of good that comes from greenhouse gas reduction. Next slide. The county has undertaken a pretty significant effort, which is a 45% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030. Our baseline is the year 2015. You can see that we've done only two. Basically, we did these inventories, one in 2015 and 2019. And between 2015 and 2019, if we go to the next slide, we went up about 16%. Oh, that's later. I apologize. And our goal, so we've gone up between 2015 and 2019. Our goal by 2030 is to get back down to that 45% reduction goal. Our plan focuses on community-wide actions, and I'm not going to read them, but you all can see there's 6 different sections of the community action plan. And then we also have the goal of our own stuff, the county's trucks, our buildings, our people, reducing our emissions by 45% internally. And so that's seems more doable, but it's also really challenging, as I think anyone in local government will admit. Next slide.
You've got about 1 minute left.
Yes, this is the last thing we're going to hit on. Next slide. All right, so where are the greenhouse gases coming from in Pierce County? And this, what's cool is you'll see like worldwide or you'll see state, but this is the Pierce County, our roughly million people. We have 34% of greenhouse gases are coming from our homes and our buildings. 31% are coming from transportation, so driving around in cars, vehicles, trucks, all the things. 27% of our emissions are coming from land use and the loss of vegetation and trees. So that's pretty significant. And then you have refrigeration of 4%, waste and wastewater at 4%. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to go one more. Sorry, we're going to be quick. One more even, because it does. There we go. So where like if you're trying to get a 45% reduction, the only way to get close to that is to deal with the development, forest and farmland, the heating and cooling of buildings, and the commute, the transportation. So we're not going to solve this by recycling. I want to say that as the solid waste guy. Recycling is excellent, but it's not going to solve climate change, okay? We need to focus on reducing our use of fossil fuels and making sure that we plant a lot of trees. And that's one of those things that has so many co-benefits. So electric cars, transportation, transit, riding your bike, walking, all those things are hugely helpful in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And with that, I will say thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Dix. We appreciate it. Next, we have Chris Chapeau. Chris, if you could make your way up. Chris is with Pierce County Parks and is the manager, supervisor, not sure what your title is, of the Pierce County Conservation Futures Program, which was my first role with the county. I was on the Citizens Advisory Board. Most awesome experience. So we look forward to hearing from Chris as we start at the top of our watershed in our timber and land and what we are doing to help conserve that.
Yeah, so I'm the Conservation Futures Coordinator. That's what they call me.
Well, we'll call you a manager here today.
Thank you. So I'm the Conservation Futures Coordinator for Conservation Futures. We can go to the next slide. And Conservation Futures was established here in Pierce County in 1991. It is a public land preservation program that serves all of Pierce County. And what that means is that we fund projects that purchase land or purchase rights in lands to conserve those for open space use. Those can be farms, those can be prairies, those can be our forests, marine and river shorelands, as well as cultural uses as well. Next slide. I'm going to be quick today. So overall, the program has been around for 30 years, and we have preserved 6,680 acres throughout Pierce County, investing $87.3 million into our county in open space. As you can see, we do a lot of work here in District 7, but throughout Pierce County as well. The funds for this particular program come from the Conservation Futures tax levy. All property owners pay into this, and therefore all properties have the benefit of these lands that are preserved with this particular program. The program, like I said, grants funds to county departments or divisions, also outside Pierce County departments that can be nonprofit conservation organizations, park districts that purchase lands for open space use. One of the great things about this particular program is that all the properties that are purchased with this program have public access. So it's more than just purchasing these properties to conserve for watershed purposes or flooding purposes. It's to get people to connect with nature. Next slide. Overall, I've kind of broken down our 6,600 acres, just over 2,700 acres for fish and wildlife habitat, about 1,000 acres for parks and trails throughout the county. We've purchased and protected 2,500 acres for farms and working lands. That's farms and forest, so our working forests as well. And then marine shorelines, not as many acres, but we're getting there. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, and I'm going to put a plug in, the Conservation Futures application round is coming up here in 2025. So if you're a nonprofit conservation organization or know or work with one, as well as work with a city or other municipal government, work with them to bring a project forward for review and funding. So if you've got questions, please contact me. And the next slide should be it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know we have Allie from the Great Peninsula Conservancy, who they've done a ton of projects with Conservation Future. Anybody else in the audience? Metro Parks maybe has done something at some point. Yes, I figured. Awesome, awesome program. It's so important. Next, we have Dana Coggin from the Pierce Conservation District, and she's going to talk about climate smart woods, sustainable forestry, and Firewise.
In 5 minutes.
Good evening.
5 minutes, and I'm very disappointed because even though Councilmember Morrell dressed up, Miss Coggin, who was supposed to bring her orca costume,
I have
let me down.
butterflies on.
You have butterflies on.
Butterflies.
I guess it's
and a flower on my bow tie.
All right.
So also I wanted to let you know my favorite tree is a larch.
Okay.
So just in case, just keeping with the theme of things. So thank you, Council, for hosting this here in this area. This is one of my favorite spots to come and recreate. I love this park. This park is near and dear to my heart. When I used to pretend to run, I'd pretend to run here.
All right.
Yeah, just to be clear, I would stop a lot and breathe and take in the trees. So good. That's why I was pretending to run. I am with the Pierce Conservation District, and I like to fondly say that we are about healthy lands, healthy streams, healthy forests, healthy fish, which lead to healthy people and whole communities. I have the next slide, please. I have the privilege today of talking about the forest section of kind of the forest to tide lines. And Councilmember Denson and I were talking about, how could we really think about connecting everything? And everything is connected through water, through natural resources, through all of these processes. But one of the most important things that is also critical to point out is that everything is connected through people. The people who've been here since time immemorial, and the people who have stewarded this land and have given us the opportunity to also steward this land. So the Coast Salish people, I give my greatest gratitude for the work that I get to do, because I love what we get to do here. You'll recognize that I have a couple of pictures up there. I really wanted to bring the imagery really fully home. Not really, it's really hard to see if you're in the back of the room. The top left picture is a picture of what our forested lands used to look like. That beautiful greenery that was covering most of the Pacific Northwest. For those of you who don't know, one of the main things that we actually started harvesting first and foremost in the Pacific Northwest were trees. Really? Surprising, yeah. So forests are one of the main reasons why we have populace here. If you notice the picture on the right, you'll see that it's not quite as bright and green. And that's not just because we went in and colored it over, but that's actually because we've paved it over. Those are areas where you can see that we've actually developed the area. We've put in concrete, we've put in houses. I mean, I don't know about you, I like my house, so I'm not super sad about that. Also, I recognize that my house comes from the trees that are in the area. The picture below is actually a picture that I took in the Gig Harbor area, so I wanted to bring that closer to home too, yeah. So the Gig Harbor area, we were out there, and I just happened to kind of look across the way and thought about the fact that even though this is probably a third-generation forest in this area, it is really critical for all of us to remember that it's not just about the forests that are out there now, but it's about us maintaining forests and maintaining our processes for the next generations. If we're just out there and we're just harvesting now and we're not replanting, we're missing the point. So, next slide. Brief history of conservation districts. I'm sure some of you are like, well, wait a minute, the conservation district, I thought you worked with farms. We do. We actually kind of came out of the Dust Bowl, so we were part of what government said we are here to help about. We noticed that our farmlands were blowing away, and not only were our farmlands blowing away, but our waters were being depleted. And so the federal government said, hey, we can do something about this, but what they said was, we're the federal government, and we know the people that are on the land locally know better than we know, so we're going to put the power and purpose in with those community members. So the Pierce Conservation District was formed in 1949. So we hit just over 75 years recently. And one of the beautiful things that we get to do is connect not just our farmlands, but our waters. And then we've been lucky enough to really take a bigger, broader view of our forested lands too. So next slide. Our mission at the district is to actually go out and do equitable management and support community-driven solutions. And one of the things that we know is that if we tell people what to do, they won't do it. But if we ask people what we should do and work alongside people, we can get so much more done.
And Dana, you have 1 minute. You haven't gotten to your programs yet.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Kick it into high gear here.
Kick it in. Good news is that the next slide should, I actually did this. We are government here to help, stewardship, boots on the ground folks. We go both from the forested, but also down into our community areas, again, rain gardens and other things. Next slide. We work collaboratively. I already hit this in talking about how we work with our communities, so we can go to the next slide. Keeping in mind that we deal with complex challenges, nothing is ever simple in the environmental field and nothing is ever straightforward, so we work with folks to actually branch out, pun intended, to community members and work collectively and collaboratively. Next slide. You can go to the next slide. I've already talked about some of those. We are really excited right now to bring forth a new program here in Pierce County called the Smart Wood Commodities Grant. This is actually working with the federal government. We'll be working with our community members to actually go and help small foresters to do managed, controlled harvests and then actually get that harvested timber to local sawmills. So we are actually doing a complete circle of actually bringing commodities back to Pierce County. Rather than just harvesting and sending them away, we're harvesting, keeping things here, and then actually replanting those areas directly. Next slide. Part of the other cool pieces of the projects that we've been able to do is that Councilmember Mello actually helped pilot the project that we are now seeing money come in for, which is our first carbon credit project here in Pierce County. So for every tree planted, we actually are doing climate smart solutions, and we are able to actually work with communities to gain money back to Pierce County for carbon sequestration. So, next slide.
Can you wrap it up?
We can. This is the last one. We'll make this the last one. For sustainability, we know that when things come in, they have to go out. With the carbon ready process, we know that this is a full cycle. I did lie. It's not the last one. I have one more, maybe two.
Trouble.
I'm almost a government entity here. So let's do next slide. One of the really key things we talked about before was smoke and fire hazards. We actually have a brand new program also that we're working with the health district on to actually do fire-wise communities. So again, this is that collaboration issue. We've done multiple events out in the Gig Harbor area and up in the forested areas all throughout Pierce County. So we are county-wide with actually doing management and helping landowners make sure their piece of property is fire safe. I just heard on the radio that we are definitely hitting some of the hottest areas in the nation right now. So next slide. Next slide. So we know that everything that we do at the Conservation District does actually touch from the timber to the tidelands. So I'm going to let other people talk about the other things, but we actually do a lot of tideland work also. So I'm excited about this work that you all are letting us do and participate in. So next slide. So if you have any other questions, just keep in mind that we're here to work together with everyone, and yes, we are from the government and we are here to help.
Thank you, Ms. Coggin. The Pierce Conservation District does a lot, so I encourage you to check out their website because they have a lot of resources. Now I'm going to bring up Tom Kantz from Pierce County.
Poor Russ.
Sorry, Russ, you're close. Pierce County Planning and Public Works, and Tom is going to talk about a really, really cool progress that we are making on fish barrier culverts. So Tom, and I just want to remind people to be marking off your word game card. All right.
Thank you. Kevin Dragon, our division manager in surface water management, was unable to make it tonight, and he gives his regrets, but I'll be presenting the slideshow. It's going to be a very brief overview of the fish barrier and culvert inventory and prioritization list that we developed very recently In December of 2022, County Council directed Planning and Public Works to develop this list. The project results include a spreadsheet inventory, a prioritization tool, a GIS mapping tool, and a project portfolio that looks like this. The list was developed in coordination with 8 other Pierce County departments and Planning and Public Work divisions, and reflects not just a prioritization towards fish benefit, but also projects that contain multiple benefits. For example, culverts are prioritized for high habitat benefit for fish, but may also address concerns related to flooding, water quality, safety, and transportation issues. The inventory and prioritization also reflects important input and feedback from our tribal partners, including the Puyallup, the Muckleshoot, the Nisqually, and the Squaxin Island tribes. Next slide, please. So how many culverts are there on this list? There are 854 Pierce County managed culverts. And of those culverts, 672 have been analyzed for fish passability, and 557 of them are identified as barriers based on WDFW criteria. There's still a backlog of 182 culverts that require further analysis, so those numbers will change. And 22 of these culverts have been identified as current or planned projects. Next slide, please. So with so many culverts, how do you figure out which ones to do first? We assessed each culvert based on 14 criteria. For example, how many fish species are impacted by the culvert, whether the culvert's been identified already as a priority by the county or one of our partners or the tribes or the state, and whether they're eligible for grant funding. We then placed the culverts into tiers based on how highly they scored, with Tier 1 having the highest benefit across all criteria, and there are about 15 culverts in Tier 1, down to Tier 5 with relatively lower benefits to salmon recovery, and there are a total of 107 culverts in Tier 1 through 3, which would be the highest culverts. The mapping tool we developed allows us to see the culverts across the landscape, and so you can see that they are all over. They're not clustered in any one watershed. If you click on one of the culverts, one of the little dots on that map, then that map will pop up a wealth of information about that culvert, including its priority tier, the stream it's on, fish species that are present, and so forth. Next slide, please. We have conducted preliminary planning cost estimates for the first 2 tiers, Tier 1 and Tier 2, and we will continue to develop planning estimates for the other tiers. This helps us inform our workload, update our surface water improvement plan, and help organize our team to begin developing these, start addressing these barriers. And it also highlights the magnitude of what these culvert replacements will cost and what resources will be needed to implement a culvert replacement program. Next slide, please. So where can you find more information about this project? It is on the Pierce County website. And if you Google Pierce County Salmon Recovery Planning, it will pop up a page, and links to the map and the folio will be there, and the project list. So you can get all the information that you need from that website. And I don't know if this slide is going to be available to the public, but you can also just cut and paste those URLs into your browser, and it'll take you directly to that page. Next slide, please. So I want to thank the council for continued support for this effort, and I'm happy to answer any hot questions that you may have.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Kantz. This is amazing work, and it's really, really interesting to explore this. And who knew what you would be interested in on county council? It turns out culverts and septic systems two hot topics for me. So thank you so much for this very important work. And next we will welcome up Russ Ladley. Mr. Ladley is the Fisheries Director for the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. Thank you so much for being here. And we did give Russ 10 minutes, so he's got a little extra time if he needs it because they're doing such important work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I won't need the 10 minutes, but hot on the tails of Tom Kance's last talk, I'd like to put a plug in for the tribe's eagerness to see the next phase of the culvert work, which is implementation, actually constructing those culverts for fish passage.
Wonderful.
Very important.
On that. Yeah.
So just down the road here, almost a stone's throw away, is Point Defiance Net Pen program that not only the tribe, it's actually a very successful cooperative effort. SAMI students here are learning about raising fish, feeding fish, and from what I understand, mending holes that have been chewed in by otters and seals. So they're anxious to partake on that resource. So there's not only an educational value to this, but of course the resource enhancement associated with rearing salmon. If you saw the opener, all the sports fishermen out there today, there was Area 11 opener, very popular fishery. There was over 150 boats out there. Testing Commencement Bay for its Chinook fishery, so important. Next slide, please. Just another angle of all the onlookers watching the loading of the net pens. We keep about 100,000 Chinook. The state contributed about 50,000, and the Puyallup tribe contributed 50,000. The two pens have fish of different sizes and of different tag codes, so that after they're harvested, if they're harvested, we'll be able to look at basically any survival rate differences that are associated with those different life history strategies. So next slide, please. Wanted to jump into a new topic that I think you're all familiar with, but probably isn't getting enough attention, certainly not in the tribe's view, and that is bank protection, armoring, revetment. This is just down the road here on Ruston Way, next to the merchant marine ships. There's actually over 3 miles of this heavy revetment along the 5 miles of Ruston Way. Keep in mind that revetment is actually the antithesis of functional fish habitat. Okay, we recognize the importance, the need, but we're exploring opportunities to change that. Next slide, please. Wanted to throw this slide in as a reference condition. This is across the bay on the northeast side, just north of the Tyee Marina, one of the few remaining undeveloped shorelines in Commencement Bay. But it's important to look at the habitat attributes that make this type of beach so much more important and functional for a variety of fish species, salmon, as well as forage fish that not only grow here but provide the future forage for mature salmon. We've lost not only our salmon stocks, but our forage fish stocks. If you talk to old timers, they can tell you about all the big schools of herring, or eulachon, or smelt, or anchovies that persisted throughout Puget Sound, and it's quite, it's unique for us to even catch them in our ongoing beach seining efforts throughout Commencement Bay and Puget Sound. So, next slide. Jumping just about 5 miles from here, the Blair Waterway, and kind of stepping on the toes of Kristen Eng as a port commissioner, but sorry about that. Wanted to mention that the port's been eyeing this concept of expanding the waterway, making it more accommodating for these really large container ships that are kind of the future of container shipping throughout the world. In order to do that and make it possible, the Blair Waterway needs to be dredged. It's currently at about minus 52 feet, and these big ships simply require greater draft. Next slide. I actually borrowed this slide from the port. Sorry about that. Kind of shows the evolution of the shipping industry. So we're trying to work, because the Puyallup tribe has important properties also on the Blair that they would like to develop for terminal purposes. Next slide. As part of that navigation effort, which could start as soon as 2 to 3 years, they're going to need to move about 2 million cubic yards from the Blair waterway. Now, policy, Army Corps of Engineers policy requires that about 70% of the material that's been tested clean or deemed suitable for nearshore work needs to be used for beneficial purposes. So we've been exploring with port staff as well as the Army Corps of Engineers opportunities to use some of that clean dredge spoil material to potentially cover up some of those riprap areas. We're not going to remove them. We recognize the importance. Certainly we're not going to get the feeder bluff habitats providing that sediment that was historically provided along Ruston. There's too much infrastructure with the roadway, the railroad, and all the development. So this is an example of a restored shoreline right here at Olympic View. With a Superfund site early on. It's actually had 2 applications of beach nourishment. Has a variety of problems, which weren't not a surprise, but it's come a long ways, and I think it's an important example of what can be done throughout Commitment Bay to enhance fisheries. So, next slide. That's it.
Thank you so much, Director Ladley. Thank you for highlighting some of your concerns and some of your initiatives and ways that we can partner together. And these are certainly things that the county is very interested in, as well as, in particular, making sure our shorelines are healthy for our fish and our other species. So really appreciate your presentation. All right, we are moving down the watershed to our nearshore communities, and we have a presentation by Metro Parks, one of our hosts for tonight, from Andrea Smith, the Metro Parks president of the commission.
Thank you very much. And I don't know when to say advanced slide because I was not provided with the slideshow.
I don't think you have slides. We made this one up for you.
Thank you.
I hope you like it.
No, I do. Because first thing I'm going to talk about is this one. So climate change is, yes, a very real threat to the Park District, and the impacts of it are pronounced every year with the heat waves, the wildfires, the smoke, the heavy rain, landslides, and flooding. So we have actually 8 miles of parks along our shorelines and others that are densely forested. Many of our unique and beloved assets in Tacoma are definitely threatened by climate change, which is why we're striving to enhance our capacity to respond and adapt. The best example of this is the Owen Beach project, which you see here, which was completed in June 22. After operating as a public park since 1957, most of the infrastructure at Owen Beach exceeded its useful life and improvements were necessary. So our $6.3 million project recognized the opportunity to preserve the essence of the beach while incorporating climate-resilient designs to protect the space for future generations. Part of protecting the space was protecting the facilities from sea level rise, which is estimated to increase by 6 feet by 2090. So we moved the facilities inland. The promenade was pulled up 18 feet, the lawn was pulled up 34 feet, and the parking lot 57 feet away from where they originally were. So to reduce our carbon profile, we used cross-laminated lumber in the new pavilion, and we prioritized using the demolished concrete already on site to construct new retaining walls, which reduced the amount of truck traffic coming down to actually pump concrete. It also supports our goal of sustainability. Another key element in environmental conservation is education. We partner, of course, with the Tacoma Public Schools to co-fund part of our project to ensure that Owen Beach stays a hub of learning. The pavilion is also a classroom for the Sami students, and the building that houses the water sport rentals also has classrooms, the little one over on the side. So that not only maximized public investment, it also provided Sami another place for students to expand their education beyond a typical classroom and get hands-on learning on marine biology, environmental studies, and other sciences. After After all, these students actually are going to be our next generation. They're the ones they're going to have to preserve and protect when we are gone, and they're already learning how to be good stewards of our park district. Partnering for the environment well-being brings multitudes of benefits so that we can align ideas and resources and have a greater impact on what we could do on our own. So that's why we have invited the SAMI students to actually help us with our climate action plan that we are currently developing. This plan will further develop our efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, establish new climate goals, targets, and assess the vulnerabilities and opportunities as we respond to a changing climate. We're midway through the planning process, and we'll have upcoming workshops to set goals both in the immediate and for the next 5 years. So the recurring themes, both internally and externally from the community, include tree canopy, climate resiliency, and reducing the carbon footprint, and also increasing our local economy by buying local to be part of our major components. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Thank you so much. All right, now we're going to hear from the City of Tacoma with Deputy Mayor John Hines to talk about the Tacoma Sustainability Program. And I'll just take a second while John comes up. My son has taken math classes down at the Owen Beach building. Super jealous. It's just beautiful.
Move this up.
Deputy Mayor Hines, welcome.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Tacoma. Many of you are residents here, and I just want to welcome you to, in my opinion, the best district in the City of Tacoma, which is District 1, which is the one I represent, which is where we are right now. Now, Councilman Denson, I know you said I had 20 minutes, but I thought I would deliver this a little quicker.
5 minutes.
No. So there's so much to talk about that it's actually going to be just a brief overview to stay within my time limit. So just good evening. Thank you for being here. Can we go to the next slide, please? So first I want to start with, in 2019, the City of Tacoma declared a climate emergency. I want to thank Councilmember Mello, who was on the council when that happened, but that wasn't just Councilmember Mello in 2019. It was a lot of effort over many years to get to that point. So Councilmember Campbell, also thank you for all your efforts on our Tacoma City Council prior to that. You know, we talk a lot about the need for the city and the county to partner, and climate change is something we can clearly see we need to partner on, because the rising temperatures and the wildfire smoke don't stay outside of the city's boundaries. They go across the entire county. It's something we have to work together on. Go ahead, next slide. So in response to our climate emergency, the Tacoma City Council declared a climate emergency in 2019, and then we also called on our staff to create a transformative climate action plan. And after 14 months of input and over 1,000 community members participating, we created our 2030 Climate Action Plan. And our Climate Action Plan has many components to it. I would encourage you to check out our website. Just look for Climate Action Plan 2030, City of Tacoma website. You can read all of it. With proposed investments in healthy and affordable housing, reliable and clean transportation, protections for public health, and good paying green jobs, which you'll hear about more, I'm sure. I'm very proud of all the work the City of Tacoma has done over the last few years, and we get updates every year, and very excited about where we're going. We know that it's going to require a lot of efforts, and there's more to come, but we feel very confident on the path we're on right now. We'll go ahead and click on to the next slide. So I just want to talk about a couple of highlights. We do a progress report every year, and in 2023 we had a few really cool highlights to bring up. The city was awarded $25.5 million to state and federal grants for our climate work. We launched our community tree program, where we had over 130 community volunteers to distribute 515 trees to 204 households. There will be a test later. 86% of the total trees distributed went to low tree canopy neighborhoods. So really trying to invest in our tree canopy, expanding it where it already exists and where it's vibrant, and then really trying to get trees in parts of our state where we don't have as many. There's really a lot to do on this front too, but I'm very happy about it. We're really looking now also at implementing our green economic development strategy, which is talking about how do we get jobs here that not only are responsive and meet our climate needs, but also grow our economy in a green way. And then we're in our second year of our Tacoma Climate Leadership Cohort. I think the last slide is up. There we go. We look forward to more great partnerships with our county partners in the years ahead. I just want to shout out a couple other pieces. My colleague is here, Councilmember Walker, if she could wave her hand. I want to thank her for two key pieces of her leadership. Let's give her a round of applause. Woo! she doesn't have to come up here and speak with me. Number one, Councilmember Walker, along with Councilmember Beal, who's no longer on the council, in 2021 led with our building decarbonization ordinance. So when we look at the future buildings in the city of Tacoma, decarbonizing our buildings, reducing our footprint. And then also, I'm very proud of all of her work on the deconstruction program for the city of Tacoma, right? So not just demolition, deconstruction, how we can reuse materials. And that's all I have this evening. Hopefully that was under my timeline.
You were. Well done. Deputy Mayor Hines, thank you. And you will want to meet one of the volunteers back there, Josie Crosby. She's part of the climate cohort this year. So make sure you get to know her. They just went through their training last weekend, and apparently it was amazing. So now we are going to invite up the president of the Port of Tacoma Commission, Kristen Eng, to talk about green economic development. Woo! And other great port things.
Well, thank you for having me, Council. My name is Kristen Eng. I am the Port of Tacoma Commission President and co-chair of the Northwest Seaport Alliance. We are one of the busiest gateways in North America, supporting over nearly 60,000 jobs, as well as $12 billion in economic activity annually in Washington State. Our mission statement right now is the Port of Tacoma makes strategic investments in our harbor and community to promote prosperity, trade, and jobs while protecting and enhancing the environment. The environment part has just been put there 4 years ago, but it's always been at the heart of the Port of Tacoma and what we'd like to do. And we embrace our role as leaders in the clean energy transition, as well as addressing climate. And that is why, during these past 4 years, we set a goal of reducing our emissions to zero by 2040 as our organization, as well as 2050 for all seaport activities. And that means those that aren't even in our control, but we know we play a facilitative leadership role, whether that's in trucks, rails, shipping, anything that has to do with our particular industry, because we know it affects our community and because we know this is the next phase of green opportunities and green jobs. For instance, we are installing shore power at all our international container terminals by 2030. Husky Terminal, which is our largest and busiest terminal in the Port of Tacoma, started developing shore power in 2022, and it should be finished soon. We also created the Zero Emission Truck Collaborative, which includes industry, because you have to have everybody in this to make the clean energy transition. It cannot just be one player or a wish by one organization. So we do have industry, we have labor, we have tribes, we have environmental orgs, the people who will install the zero emission fueling, infrastructure, charging. I was just presenting at the White House in April with regards to the first ever national zero emission freight strategy, and our area will be a priority one hub. So we will be one of the premier hubs for zero emission, as well as we won the Phoenix Award last year as the Port of Tacoma. That is the Oscars of the cleanup world. And yes, there is such a thing. We redeveloped 113 acres at the Port of Tacoma. Part of it is a regional logistics center, and the other part, which is well known nationally and internationally, is the creation of the 20-acre Lower Wapato Creek Habitat Site in collaboration with the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. It has over 5,000 trees planted, as well as 2 fish burial culverts. So at the Port of Tacoma, we not only look at our pollutants, addressing climate change, but we really are cleaning up the contaminants of that particular land. We know that we have a legacy. We know we have to clean that up, as well as addressing climate resiliency. Sometimes people wonder, do you know that there's sea level rise? Yes, we do. These past 4 years, we have taken a look at a lot of the hazards that will come, whether that's fire hazards, whether that is earthquakes, rising sea levels. We want to make sure that our ports and our communities are secure. I also want to say that we are pursuing more opportunities in the green energy with regards to offshore wind. We commissioned a study for the ports of Seattle and ports of Tacoma to take a look at our properties, how we can be part of the multi-billion, if not trillion, industry of offshore wind, which will start in California, but they will need supply chains from our area. And we're looking to redevelop the early business center, possibly as offshore wind vessel supply. That's why we went to the Copenhagen with a few of your council members here, whom are really great travel buddies, I must say. We also are cleaning up around the area of Thea Foss and Wheeler Osgood, because that will be the creation of the Maritime 253 Skill Center in collaboration with Tacoma Public Schools, which will serve all students of Pierce County to get those great paying maritime jobs. That will also be the site of our Port Administration building and headquarters. And we will have, people often say, are you going to put solar on those roofs? Yes, we will. We will have battery storage. We will make it happen. I also did want to say that in terms of the trucks, you should see them later this year, those zero-emission trucks. You'll see the demos. But we have secured so many grants, thanks to, I'm going to point out, Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, Liz Larder is here. I see Juan Beltran Gonzalez from Senator Murray. Like, 54 million. We were the highest in terms of certain grants because of our congressional delegation. We just submitted $500 million for the U.S. EPA Clean Ports grants, which will transition a lot of the cargo handling equipment in the South Harbor, which we call Port of Tacoma, to zero emissions, as well as finish our job with regards to shore power, plus create more EV charging. So it is because of our congressional delegation, the Inflation Reduction Act, I guess almost just bipartisan Infrastructure Act, as well as the Climate Commitment Act, that we are able to do this, and we will continue to address climate and pursue the opportunities for our community. So thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, President Eng. We know the Port takes this very seriously, and we know that you are leading these efforts, so we really appreciate it. I'll do a quick shout out. The Port gives tours by bus and boat, and I encourage you to check that out. It's fascinating. All right, next we are going to be talking about eelgrass, and we have a presentation by Jeff Gakel, Nearshore Habitat Program with Washington Department of Natural Resources. I had the opportunity to go out with Jeff and his crew as they were snorkeling and doing research and planting eelgrass out in the Key Peninsula area, which was awesome. So Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Yes, and thank you, Robin, for inviting me. Hello, I'm Jeff Gakel. I'm a scientist with the Nearshore Habitat Program. I work on seagrasses, and I co-lead the program with Helen Berry, who's on that list up there, and those are the colleagues at the program. Initially, Robin invited me and wanted me to come in my wetsuit, but I just rinsed my wetsuit.
I am so disappointed.
and so we all know what getting into a wetsuit is like, so I'll carry on and tell you a little bit about eelgrass. Next slide, please. Okay, so eelgrass is very important habitat. Here we see geese using it for foraging, some shiner perch, a salmonid. Right here, that picture on the bottom right is a salmonid at the Nisqually Delta that we took, and then Phyloplasia, a sea hare in the middle, and then the rack that provides a lot of invertebrates for organisms. Next slide, please. There are 6 seagrass species in Puget Sound. Here we have 3 shown, the native eelgrass, Zostra marina. The smaller one in the middle of that picture on the left is Zostra japonica, a non-native species. And on the right are surfgrass, or is a surfgrass. There's 3 species of surfgrass. And then the last species is Rupia maritima, which is more of a brackish water slough type of species. But this just shows some of the habitat they grow on. It's rocky outcrops. That's on the San Juan Islands, the surfgrass, and then sandy habitat and mud habitat. Next slide, please. We have a sound-wide monitoring program that samples approximately 100 sites throughout the Sound. These are results from that monitoring program, which just shows the distribution of eelgrass on the panel on the left, surfgrass, the panel in the middle, and non-native or dwarf eelgrass in the panel on the right. And you can see that eelgrass is widespread throughout all of Greater Puget Sound, as far out as Nia Bay on the Strait of Juan de Fuca, as far north as the Canadian border, and all the way down to Case Inlet and into Lynch Cove in Hood Canal. Phylospadix is more in a rough or surfy area, hence the name surfgrass, larger wave energy. And then Zostra japonica tends to be mostly on the central Puget Sound area Okay, next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we monitor seagrass, and this slide's a bit difficult to see, but if you look closely, I have a pointer in 2 slides that will help you see these data close better, but there's small green fringing area within Pierce County, and those are areas that we've sampled, and they're approximately a kilometer long length of shoreline that we sample with underwater videography, and we provide an estimate of that area and then a depth distribution of the seagrass in that area. So if you click the next slide, I'm going to hone in that red circle in the southern extent of Anderson Island. I'm going to look at Thompson Cove. Next slide, please. If you Google, and it's hard to see on these screens, but it says search DNR Seagrass Data Viewer, you can see these data yourself. And so it's a data viewer, and every yellow polygon is our site polygon. Every green polygon within the yellow polygon is where eelgrass can be found. And then if you click on the center dot in those polygons, you'll get that pop-up box. And that pop-up box will show the number of years we sampled the site, how much area of eelgrass is at that site, and then the depth distribution of the eelgrass at that site. If the yellow polygon does not have a green polygon, eelgrass was not found at that site. And again, this is all done with underwater videography. We drop a camera overboard and tow it along the bottom or just off the bottom at about 10 to 15 transects at each site. Next slide, please. We also, the monitoring program is done by my colleague Bart Christian. I do most of the eelgrass restoration work. And this is an example of eelgrass restoration at Joema Beach State Park on the left. And then the map on the right shows the sites in green where we've had transplant success and the sites that look like a bullseye where we've had mixed results. Next slide, please. We monitor these sites using quadrat sampling, so we look at chute density and canopy height to see how they perform over time. We also do UAS surveys or drone surveys, as shown on the right. And then, as I explained earlier, we do the underwater videography. And the map in the middle is Joema Beach State Park. So, and the people on the left figure in this slide are sampling at Joema Beach State Park, where we've had a successful eelgrass restoration effort. Next slide, please. So this is the area, or the figure on the left, and I'm sorry, I'm a scientist, so I got to provide some data here. But on the figure shows the solid green is the total area of eelgrass at Joema Beach State Park, and the black line shows the chute density over time. So we started out in 2015 with very little area and very few chutes. And over time, this has increased, and it keeps spreading across the bottom. And eelgrass spreads vegetatively, and it also spreads through flowering underwater. And when the plant flowers, it produces a seed, which can then recruit in other areas. And the picture on the right is a reproductive shoot. The really chartreuse color of that plant is the flowering plant. And next slide, please. So we're going to continue doing collaborative research. I'm working with UW scientists at Joema Beach State Park tomorrow to collect samples for genetic studies. We were out at Rocky Bay and Vaughan Bay today, and we're going to Anderson Island on Friday. So we're involved in a lot of research to try to understand what the best population to transplant, the best strategy or technique to transplant, and the best sites to transplant. We're also going to continue looking at water quality and sediment quality at these sites. I also want to mention my colleague Bart and I collaborated with Nicholas Reibel, and if you go to the next slide, we just submitted a proposal to monitor most of the shoreline of Pierce County, and it was a Habitat Strategic Initiative lead proposal. This will be decided sometime in August, I think, whether we are awarded funding, and the project will start next 2025, I think, in July of 2025.
And Mr. Gazel, if you could wrap it up.
Yes, and then the final slide is, there's also kelp in Pierce County. And so you should go to Google or search for DNR kelp forest monitoring, and you can find out all about kelp.
This is fascinating, and we were just kind of talking about, we saw that grant proposal come through because we have to approve these things, and we're so excited about it. So we hope that you get it, and we'll have to have you perhaps back to do a longer presentation to one of our committees. Thank you so much, Mr. Gazel. Really appreciate it. Scientists are the coolest. All right, We have another really interesting presentation, the Pierce County Pump Out Boat Program. We have Austin Jennings, Pierce County Planning and Public Works, and Paul Wynn, our pump out boat operator. And we are doing great. We have 4 more presentations, including yours.
All right, sounds good. Well, it's not culverts, but it's close to septics because we do deal with waste here. So my name is Austin Jennings. I'm the Water Quality Planning Unit Supervisor with Pierce County Planning and Public Works Surface Water Management. I am joined here by Paul Wayne, who is our contract operator for the 2 pump-out vessels that we operate. I do want to mention, too, my planner Jeff Barney, who is kind of the brains and the catalyst behind a lot of this work. He wasn't able to be here with us tonight, but we certainly would not be where we are without him, and I wanted to recognize that. So the Pierce County South Sound Mobile Pump Out Program launched in 2021 with the goal of improving marine water quality in and around the county's shellfish growing areas. The program also supports Washington State Department of Ecology's 2018 designation of the Puget Sound as a no-discharge zone for vessel sewage by providing recreational boaters with improved access to cleaner waste disposal alternatives. Partial funding for this project was provided by the Washington State Clean Vessel Act grant program, along with matching contributions from several of our partners, including Pierce County, City of Gig Harbor, the Alliance for the Healthy South Sound, Recreational Boating Association of Washington, and the Minterbrook Oyster Farm. You can go to the next slide. Thank you, Councilmember Mello. So the Clean Vessel Act grant program is funded by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through the Sportfish Restoration and Boating Trust Fund. And with that, I will pass the mic over to our operator. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jennings.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So yes, I drive a boat. And what that boat does is I'm basically focusing on recreational boaters that come to the South Sound to recreate, right? At their slips, at their marinas, there are pump-out options. But when they come here, there's very few. And we got beautiful locations where they love to go, like Oro Bay, Falusi Bay, Hope Island. There are so many places, kind of like the San Juans, really, only it's down in the south, right? But there's like 2 places you can go to pump out if you're a recreational boater. You've got Swantown, or you've got Gig Harbor. Gerald Cove has a pump out, but it only has about only has about 1,000 gallon capacity. So it doesn't take long to fill that up, right? And if you're a boater and you're at Oro Bay, are you going to take half the day to go to Swantown and pump out? Probably not, right? So what I do is I drive my boat around. I go to all these different locations. We can actually go to the next slide if you like. And like on a Saturday, I'm going to do the full route, which is Oro Bay, Falusi Bay. I'm going to Allen, Washington. I'm going to Stretch Island, Reach Island. I'm going to Island Home, which is a yacht club outstation for the Olympia Yacht Club. I go to Penrose, I go to Cutts Island, Willotchet Bay. It's about 120 miles. And I contact all the boaters that are out there. I ask them if I can give them a free pump out. And they love it, right? Because they really don't want to do the wrong thing. They want to do the right thing, but it's hard for them to do the right thing. So I go around and, I pump out their boats and I take it to a place that has a pump out, which is going into a proper sewage facility. In the last 4 years, we've been doing this. Well, this is actually our fourth year. We've transferred about 40,000 gallons in the South Sound, which is pretty good. I have a private business as well, and I service the marinas. So all told, with the South Sound program, a West Sound program that I have now, my private business, I'm now approaching, and this is my 5th year, almost 500,000 gallons. That's sewage that may have ended up in the Sound. Some of it definitely would have, right? So that's what we do. We go around, we make it as easy as possible for boaters to do the right thing. Okay, and they do want to do the right thing, and so we just make it as, we want to make it as easy as possible for them. Next slide, please.
And we have about a minute left, Paul.
Okay, thank you. So, I try to target my production. Every year we smash that target. In 2021, we just started. We were just kind of figuring it out. We did about, I think we set a goal for 5,000 gallons. We did 5,500. In 2022, we set a goal for 10,000 gallons. We did 12,000. 23, we set a goal for, can't remember. 12,250, thank you. And we did 17,000. So this year, we got a goal for 18,000. I'm thinking we're going to do 20. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's really easy for people to contact me. They can go online. They can book an appointment. No matter where they are in the South Sound, I can find them, right? My boats go very quickly. So I can get anywhere. They can also, I have a big banner on the boat. They can, wave at me as I go by. They can haul me over. They can call me on the radio. They can call my wife. She's the dispatcher, right? So if we have multiple operators that day, she takes the calls and she lets us know where to go. So we make it as easy as possible for people to do the right thing.
Thank you so much. This is a pilot. I don't even know if it's not really a pilot anymore. This is the first of its kind. They have presented all over the country. It's spreading. So very, very proud that it started here in Pierce County. So thank you, Paul Wynn and Austin Jennings. And next, we're going to welcome up some folks associated with SAMI. We've got Molly Hogan Edison, who is with the Point Defiance Zoo, and we have Alexis Beard from the Tacoma Public School System, and they're going to tell us a little bit about this great collaborative with the SAMI students and how they are saving salmon and helping us rebuild that population.
Thank you so much. My name is Molly Hogan Edison. I'm the SAMI Partnership Coordinator here at Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium. I'm going to introduce my colleague as well.
And hello, my name is Alexis Beard. I'm part of the CTE, Career and Technical Education team here at SAMI, and I provide the underwater robotics experience.
Cool. So Alexis and I are here to share with you today about how this unique partnership and our location here right between the forest and the sound uniquely positions us to engage students in conservation and create champions for the care and protection of nature here at Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium. Next slide, please. Oh, that's a little bit hard to read. Sorry about that. SAMI's goal, mission, and vision is to partner with community resources to change public education. At Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium, we aim to awaken a connection to wildlife with everyone in the Pacific Northwest. So when we're looking at the partnership between our two organizations based on our location and our shared goals, what we have in common is 614 students, which means 614 opportunities to create champions for the care and protection of nature. So SAMI students get to work alongside industry professionals in science and conservation learning, and they get to work in the environment, both in our zoo and in Point Defiance Park, studying nature and learning about conservation in the marine and local environment. I'm going to go over a couple of examples in which the partnership has, benefited student learning and furthered conservation, and then Alexis later is going to tell you guys about a pretty zoomed-in study of one of those opportunities as well. Next slide, please. One way that we have been engaging the SAMI community in conservation is by engaging SAMI's staff in conservation. So this year there has been a big effort to push professional learning between our organizations. So we have done some cross-departmental trainings about our facilities as well as our conservation goals to further SAMI's effort of project-based learning. So SAMI has put on a couple of project-based learning planning days in collaboration with zoo expert scientists to plan science and math curriculum for the students engaging around the work that we are doing here. We have had quite a few guest speakers from the zoo come in and train the SAMI staff on our conservation messaging efforts in order to have the teachers pass that message along to their students and bake it into their curriculum as well. So proud of some of the work that we have done to change conservation with the SAMI staff to help further with the students as well. We also engage the students very directly. Next slide, please. I'm going to share a couple of examples of highlights of this year in terms of student engagement around conservation work. This picture on the top left of the screen here, this is a group of students that installed all of the bird strike prevention window clings on this building. So if you see those little window stickers over there, some SAME students, actually Alexis Beard's mentors, actually installed those with the help of our conservation team. So the students got to learn about what is bird strikes and how is our building, dangerous to wildlife, and what can we do to help it be safer for our local wildlife. And students took on that action and actually physically installed those window clings to make this building safer for the local habitat. On the right over there is a picture of some SAME students doing some on-site learning at our sister facility, Northwest Trek. This was an intensive project in which the students were learning about animal habitat design and enclosure design in the context of conservation. And so we brought this group of students out to Northwest Trek to learn from the nature engagement team there and learn about our local environment and our local habitat here in the Pacific Northwest and how that can influence and inform exhibit design for their projects as well. On the bottom left, some students engaging in conversations around their connection to the ocean. When opening our new tropical reef aquarium here coming up on June 14th, we did some listening sessions with specific groups around what they would like to see and how they feel connected to the ocean. So we went into this SAME Spanish heritage class, the highest level Spanish class here at SAME, and talked with the students in Spanish about how they feel connected to the ocean and what they would like to see and feel represented in an exhibit about the ocean. So the students there are placing little pictures of animals on places in the world where they feel connected to and talking about how that makes them feel connected to the ocean. So that was a conversation that grew bigger beyond just that class, involving their culture and their connection and their importance to the ocean. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Alexis to talk about SAME's remotely operated vehicle program.
And Alexis, if you could do that in like a minute and a half, that would be awesome.
Okay, that's a challenge. Actually, it's all about otters. This is what it gets down to. So I get a call from Northwest Salmon Research saying that in our net pens, there are otters. So what do? I am able to use the experience the students get from our complementary relationship with the zoo to train them to be ROV pilots. This is them training in the SEAL tank. Then they have that same skill, so we can do a rapid deploy. So we rapidly deployed on Friday from the ROV class with our ROVs to go investigate this otter problem. Primary objective, where are these holes in the net? We found about 5 holes with the ROVs and about 2 holes with our drop cams. What we were able to do was to pass that information to the marina, who had a diver on hand, to go down and start patching those holes. We patched 24 holes last week in that net. Then, today I get another message from Northwest Salmon Research. There might be more otters. So I take another of my rapid deployment teams, and these are students who are in the RV program, who I say, we got a problem, we got to go handle this. They go, okay, let's go do this. So we go down. While we're walking down to the actual pen, we see splash, splash. We get down there, and we're seeing the otter dive. So it dives, goes out of the pen, and then we're getting our cameras out and getting our gear ready to go, and then it surfaces and sails away. So what do? We look for more of the holes. We found some more holes. Actually, we found a very large hole in the net today that we're able to patch. So this complementary experience enables me to give students the training so they can do the actual work to get the job done to protect the environment. Thank you.
That is amazing. Maybe you can connect with Mr. Gakel from DNR and he can use you on some of his eelgrass surveys. That is fantastic. What a great experience. So thank you both. Director Hall, did you want to say anything? Sorry, I should have introduced you as well. Director Hall from SAME. Yeah, if you want to come up and just say anything about the partnership, that would be wonderful. And again, big thanks to SAME for all their help with this meeting. They are doing all sorts of innovative things like this with their students and industry and the science community.
So I will be very brief, but one of our major underlying tenets at SAMI and with our partnership schools is that our students are working in place-based environments with relevant hands-on learning experiences that give them real-world experience as they're learning about their world. The partnership with the zoo is integral with that. The backside of this building is the zoo, and here we have a whole plethora of animals and all of the people who are taking care of them and understand what they do at our disposal, and we are working together with them. It's taken a few years for us to all get used to being in the same place and living together, but we have just been beginning to flourish in the experiences that our students are able to access within the zoo and with the staff and with the keepers. Molly, being our liaison, has been really integral in that, as well as our staff, training them and helping them get to know keepers. One of the greatest things that helped us move forward with that was a mini term, which is a J term, January experience, where our photography teacher and an English teacher decided to do a project where they would go in and they would photograph all of, or as many of the animals in the zoo as they could, but also do the story of the keeper. And so a whole bunch of keepers learned about our students as well as we learned about them, and then that photo essay collection was shown to the staff of the zoo at an all-staff meeting. It really, really helped create that bond that says these kids have something worthwhile to do with us as while they're high school students and while they're here. It kind of set up to get them some internships. We have a student who was able to work with the elephant keeper and learn about Suki, our elephant, and how she likes her food prepared and prepare her food for her every single day, working with that keeper. An experience that most people won't get when they're 15 to 17 years old before they go out into the world of their next steps in their career, and something they can take with them. So this is a huge experience here that just keeps evolving, and every day there's something new that we get to do with kids, and a lot of the times they bring ideas to us and we help envision those happen. But we can't do it alone. It is in conjunction with many, many partnerships that we have within the city of Tacoma and our surrounding environment. So thank you so much for showcasing some of the work that we're doing here today.
Thank you so much, Director Hall. It's an amazing, amazing program. So thank you for all your work and your commitment to the students. Okay, next we have Melissa Malott, Executive Director of Communities for a Healthy Bay, who's going to talk about, well, I'll let her break the news. It's very exciting.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you to the rest of the county board members. I'm here today to talk about some good news for CHB for our Bay Patrol program. And first of all, I want to thank the county board for helping support this program in the budget this year. It's very, very wonderful, and we appreciate it. So just so everyone knows, our Bay Patrol program this is a picture of our vessel that we use. It's a 24-foot Hughescraft aluminum boat that we use to patrol the Commencement Bay and the inlets of the Port of Tacoma and generally waters in the area. What we do with this is we look for pollution. We sometimes find active pollution. Russ Ladley earlier showed a photograph of Yaqualla Beach north of Tyee Marina. We used our boat to find that Tyee Marina was storing and spilling tons of styrofoam per year into the bay, and it allowed us to bring an enforcement case against them. And they agreed to clean up, to not store styrofoam on the beach, so it's saving hundreds and hundreds of pounds of styrofoam from getting into the bay every year, which is very cool. Our good news is that Jake Fye and the Tacoma delegation got into the budget this year money for a new boat for CHB next year. And it's an electric boat. It'll be a 26-foot electric work boat. That will be very cool for CHB because it will save us between $10,000 and $15,000 a year in fuel expenses. It will save us money that goes into maintaining a fossil fuel powered boat. And it's just very exciting. So that helps us with sustainability. I'm also trying to get all the words that are on the non-bingo card that have not been listed so far.
Can you talk about a blue heron, maybe?
I want to talk about shorebird.
you might
Do you know what? At the Occidental Chemical Site, we see tons and tons of blue herons standing there. Every time many times that we patrol the Hylobos waterway. But perhaps more exciting is the economic development opportunity that this electric workboat will provide. It will be the first of its kind. Right now, the world's biggest electric workboat for this type of work is 20 feet. Ours will be 26 feet. So it is the first of its kind in the world. It's going to be built here in Tacoma at Silverback Marine, a company that came out of the Maritime Incubator. This will put Tacoma, Pierce County, and Washington State on the map for the world for development of electric workboats. So very, very cool. If it sounds too good to be true, there is a little bit of a catch, and it's that the money for this is coming from the Climate Commitment Act. Yes, very exciting. In fact, Pierce County is slated to get over $100 million in funds through the Climate Commitment Act. So ours is just a drop in the bucket for all of the money that's supposed to come here. So we want to support everyone in opposing Initiative 2117, which would eliminate the Climate Commitment Act. And so just wanted to share the news. If we're able to stop 2117 and protect the Climate Commitment Act, a year from now, CHB will have the world's first 26-foot electric workboat.
Thank you, Director Malott. We're very excited about the boat. I saw Mr. Paul Wynn's eyes light up. Would you like an electric workboat for the Pump Out program?
That would be so cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. And our last presentation, talking about the Climate Commitment Act, is on the Climate Commitment Act and its activities in the state and particularly in Pierce County, because it's a timely issue. So we have with us Becky Kelly, Senior Policy Advisor for Climate, Officer of the Governor. Ms. Kelly, thank you for joining us. And we gave her 10 minutes because this is kind of a meaty subject as well.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks so much for the invitation to chat with you about the Climate Commitment Act today. I do want to say at the outset, I'm here in my capacity as a state employee, and we are not ethically allowed to speak to electoral issues, so not taking any position or advocating any position on any ballot measures this fall. So happy to talk with you about the Climate Commitment Act. Appreciate the segue from Melissa, and it's feeling like a little bit of a tough act to follow the otters and all the goodness. So you've had a good evening. Next slide, please. So to orient you with a boring pie chart, but just to kind of provide a little context about the effort and why this law exists. This is what Washington's greenhouse gas emissions look like from a few years back, where we have a little bit of a data lag, but this tells you where our climate pollution comes from. Transportation is our biggest source. Our buildings, residential and commercial, and our industrial sector are next. So those are we also have agriculture, waste management, and some other small sources. Lots of places where we have to get fossil fuel pollution out of our energy system. Next slide, please. The good news is we have strong limits, greenhouse gas emissions limits that are in state statute, thanks to the legislature. You can see that kind of pathway where we started in the 1990 to 2019 period, and then you can see the downward curve. That represents the limits that are set in state law, and how we're going to get, or basically the curve for getting to 95% reductions or net zero by 2050. And that's consistent with the international science about how we avoid the worst impacts of climate change to the globe. So the legislature has adopted many policies in recent years. The years you're seeing there are actually the years that the policies take effect. We have 100% clean electricity law. We have hydrofluorocarbon or HFC reductions, our Cap and Invest Climate Commitment Act that I'm going to talk about tonight, and then other sort of sector-based policies for fuels, for buildings, for our vehicles, and performance standards for our buildings. So we have a combination of specific legal tools and frameworks for different parts of the economy, that pie chart that you saw at the beginning. And then we have a framework, overarching policy, which is the Climate Commitment Act that I'm going to share about. Next slide, please. So the Climate Commitment Act does several important things. It was passed in 2021. It took effect in January of 2023. It limits and reduces climate pollution. It is a cap and invest program. It's a market-based program. So rather than setting a particular price on carbon, it basically says, here's our cap. Everyone has to acquire pollution allowances equal to their amount of pollution, and then the pool of available permits shrinks over time. And so people are having to, A, pay for pollution that used to be free to put into the atmosphere, and B, find ways to reduce it. That's the basic mechanism. The other thing that the law does that some folks haven't heard of is in response to environmental justice concerns in overburdened communities, it was also designed to reduce air pollution. So there's a complementary part of the law that fits together with the Cap and Invest program that is about reducing air pollution in our communities that are suffering more from it. And it has a focus on environmental justice. So as you'll hear tonight, the sale of those greenhouse gas emission allowances generates significant revenue to help invest in the transition and drive the pollution out of our economy. And those investments require at least 35% go to vulnerable populations in overburdened communities with a goal of 40%, and then 10% of the overall revenues going to tribally supported projects. Next slide, please. So this cap and invest, we don't need to get into the details, but to have some sense of how it works, like I said, there's a declining cap on pollution. That does two things over time. It actually says there's just less pollution that people are allowed to put into the atmosphere, but it also makes the math work on investing in the clean sources of energy and the clean technologies. It covers about 75% of the emissions in Washington state, so it's a very powerful tool. It's for large emitters, generating over 25,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, and it invests in all these great things that I'm going to share more information about. Next slide, please. So I do want to, before we get into the investments, I wanted to hit quickly on the air quality protection side of the Act. So the law directs the Department of Ecology to identify where are the communities that are disproportionately impacted by air pollution in Washington. They have done that now. They have identified 16 overburdened communities. And it has then a bit of a roadmap for, okay, so you've got people who are suffering from air pollution. What do you do about it? First off, we're expanding air monitoring. So you see a couple of monitors here. Ecology actually designed this very cool, small, sort of portable device that is cheap and easy to set up. These Senswa monitors, they measure PM 2.5, which is the really small particles that scientists in the medical profession are finding are very harmful to our bodies and our lungs. And they come from fossil fuel combustion, wildfires, et cetera. So we're doing more air monitoring. The legislature has invested in, you can't really know where the problems are till you measure, so we're finding out. Then, where the communities are suffering more from air pollution, there have to be strategies to address that. A combination of funding, so there's a community grant program that's being allocated out to these overburdened communities now, and then there will be rules to clean up air pollution, and you have to report on your progress. Next slide, please. Just for information, because it is, everyone wants to know, my area, North Seattle and Shoreline, that's where I'm coming from this evening, is one of these communities, and we have 2 air quality overburdened communities here in the Pierce County area, as you can see, Northeast. Yeah, they're on the list. They're kind of in alphabetical order, I guess I'm realizing. Next slide, please. So, the Cap and Invest program, which requires people to pay for carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions that used to not have any cost associated with them, generates significant revenue. So this is getting to the kind of wonky budget part of the story, but it's turned into a very powerful tool for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollution and making the transition that we need to make to meet that downward curve of pollution that you saw on the first slide. This is how the Climate Commitment Act appropriations by the state legislature in this current biennium are, you'll see on the next slide, they're about $3.2 billion. Not all of that has been raised yet. There are quarterly auctions. There are 4 auctions a year. And this is sort of a combination of what's come in already and what is forecast to be brought in future auctions. It significantly funds our state transportation budget, our state capital budget, and our state operating budget. The little footnote there relates to what Melissa was talking about. The legislature set aside or basically allocated a little over $800 million of that total aren't actually available until January 1st. In case the funding source goes away, they didn't want to pre-spend all of it, obviously. Next slide, please. This is hard to read, but again, thinking back to that first slide, when you think about our pollution sources, they're really all over our economy and our lives and our world because we've developed a fossil fuel based energy system for our world, and so the investments to make the transition to clean have to be across lots of categories, and you can see that here. Everything from agriculture to buildings to clean energy generation, clean transportation. The law also funds how we're going to be resilient and more adaptive because we're already facing the fires, the droughts, the storms. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, there's a priority for overburdened communities and tribes. We have crunched the numbers on the original 23-25 budget. We're still doing the numbers on the supplemental budget that the legislature just enacted this spring, but we're doing really well in meeting the values and goals of the law. 43% of the original investments have gone or are designated to go to overburdened communities, 7.3% to tribes. So we're either there or getting close on both of our targets. Next slide. So the last couple slides I wanted to run through are highlighting some of the investments in Pierce County, as Melissa was talking about. I'm not going to read all these to you, but there's a couple slides here. Funds go to the county, to the Puyallup tribe, to Sound Transit for Tacoma projects, Tacoma Rail, Pierce Transit service. So you can see on this page a lot of clean transportation, home energy assistance, safe routes to school is part of this equation as well. Next slide, please. And this is the second page. Again, this is, I should have said, when it says as of May 24, these are things that either were appropriated to Pierce County in the budget or that have gone out in grant programs since the budget took effect. There is a whole lot more money still to come that has not yet been allocated by state agencies. So this is a very initial list. A lot of City of Tacoma investments there. You can see this now in Communities for a Healthy Bay electric boat that Melissa was talking about, community solar, forestry projects, HVAC improvements at schools, UW Tacoma campus modernization, and then as I mentioned, it has a significant portion of investments in natural climate solutions. So both making our communities and our ecosystems more resilient to the climate impacts we're seeing, and also using natural systems to sequester more carbon. So salmon projects and forestry projects are part of the equation. That brings us to the close. I will say there is an appendix, which if you're posting this online or if constituents are receiving it by email, there are another 5 or 6 slides that kind of describe the statewide investments so people can get a sense of the statewide level picture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kelly. And if you'd like more information and to see the rest of those slides, you can just Google Pierce County Council meetings and look for this meeting and open up the packet, and all of that is there, or you can just get in touch with us and we can help you with that. All right, we're going to move into community forum. Before I do, I want to take a quick moment to thank my assistant, John Jollyboys. I'm not sure where he is, John, for setting up this meeting and doing all of the great work. I also want to thank our Pierce County Sheriff Department deputy back in the back for being here with us tonight, and I want to thank PCTV and Department of Emergency Management for setting all of this up and getting us on television so you guys can watch yourself later. All right. Oh, okay. So we're going to move into community forum. We're going to start with the members or the individuals in the room today. Community forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any topic that is of significance to or affecting Pierce County government and did not appear on today's agenda. There's a 3-minute limit, and I was asked to remind you not to speak for or against any candidate or ballot measures. So, if you would like to speak to the County Council either on an environmental issue or anything else, please go ahead and come up to the microphone. I know Lori, come on up. And if the next person wants to kind of queue up behind, that would be great. And there will be a timer as well, or I will do the timer. Okay, please proceed.
Great. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, my name is Lori Nichols, and I live in Lake Bay, Washington, which is halfway out the Key Peninsula. First, I want to thank you very much for holding meetings like this one. We very much appreciate having the entire council, and last year you visited the Long Branch Improvement Club, and we had a great turnout there as well, so thank you. Thank you also for focusing on the environment today. I have 3 important comments to make regarding working to keep a rural presence with lower density in areas like the Key Peninsula for years to come. My first recommendation is to eliminate the rural density bonus option on the Key Peninsula. Given our one highway on this 30-plus mile long peninsula, combined with strained aquifer water supply, lack of infrastructure, and significant growth over the last decade or two, we must work to slow the accelerating housing density in this rural area. At a minimum, Planning and Public Works should study the impact of this bonus option on the Key Peninsula as part of the Comprehensive Plan update. Second, I support all urban growth area, or UGA, retractions in the Purdy area, which includes the East Burley Lagoon and the Northeast Henderson Bay areas. Traffic from rapid growth in the Purdy area and across the historic and very narrow Purdy Bridge is a dangerous situation which will only worsen with more housing density and commercial growth nearby. The Gig Harbor City Council and the citizens of the Key Peninsula strongly recommend that the Purdy area be removed as an urban growth area. We urge the County Council to support this critical planning provision as well. And finally, I did live in Tacoma for 23 years and understand the impacts of a limited tree canopy in the city. The greater Tacoma area must do more to protect and enhance trees in our city. Our existing canopy is just at 19%, as I understand it, which is one of the lowest canopy coverage of any area in the Puget Sound that's been studied. We can and we must do better for our citizens and our environment by doing more to expand the canopy in Tacoma. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my views tonight. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Now forward, and please introduce yourself for the record, and you will have 3 minutes. Thank you for being with us.
All right. I'm very excited to be here. I didn't write any like formal kind of thing with like a whole bunch of points and stuff like that. This is like my first time kind of coming to one of these. So you guys are like the Pierce County like representatives and stuff like that. Okay, I see. Because the reason why I ask and stuff like that is because as a young person, I live in District 2 of, the city of Tacoma, which is, I believe, District 5 of Pierce County. And I was just kind of wondering, with all the stuff and all the work that's being done in terms of the environment and stuff like that, and with the ambitions of the county to, go through with it, and the end goal that the county wants to do for the community and stuff like that, how can young people find out more about it, get more involved, and also understand and learn who our Pierce County representatives are? And is that possible on a person-to-person level, and so on and so forth? Because I've kind of noticed with a lot of elected officials, they're very hard to get in contact with and understand, their mentality and learn about these things, and along with a lot of government agencies and the people behind these projects as well. And so just, thank you for having this, and thank you departments and offices and people, nonprofits, for doing this type of work and supporting the environment, because the future is pretty cool. So thank you so much.
And sir, what's your name?
Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Travion Parrish. I'm a Running Start student that goes to Stadium High School and Tacoma Community College. I have a background in civic engagement, dealing with young people. So.
Excellent. Well, make sure that we've got your email back there, and I will get in touch with you and connect you with whichever one of us is your county council person. It might be me if you go to Stadium. And I will say the county council is very good at being engaged with our constituents, so we'll get you connected.
Okay,
Thank you for being
so
here.
much.
All right, who's next? Please state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes,
My name is Barbara Rowland. I come from the Key Peninsula. I house is in the Lake Bay district, and the post office is in Vaughan. So, Key Peninsula is a little fractured. I am really passionate about the density levels on the Key Peninsula. I am passionate about the water usage and the lack of it. I have been for more than 20 years. And, it's every day there's more people putting their water straw into our limited aquifer and sucking it out. I'm also concerned about all the septic tanks that go in just 100 feet minimum from your well. So, yeah. The other part of the density issue is everybody talks about we need trees and we need tree canopy, and trees give us more oxygen and help us breathe. Every day I see 2 or 3 logging trucks going off the Key Peninsula, and in 20 years I would say 1/3 of the trees or more on the Key Peninsula are gone. Now, I know DNR. Well, if I want to log on my property, I can get a Pierce County permit, and I have to leave a 50-foot buffer between the Key Pen Highway and where I can log. If I go get a DNR permit, I don't have to leave any buffer at all. Now, I want to know, all those people that get the permits to log, who goes and checks up and makes sure they have really replanted and done what they promised they would do. I would be amazed at how many, if most of them do replant. I look at all the fields of Scotch broom. There ought to be an economic value to Scotch broom, but Key Peninsula, if you did an aerial, is going to be at least 1/3 bright yellow right now, So anyway, concerned about the air quality, then we need to be concerned about the amount of logging. And yeah, if I had all this nice timber, and I've got some on my property, I feel I should be able to make some money on it. But I need to put it back if we're all going to breathe well later on. So anyway, Barbara Rowland.
Thank you, Ms. Rowland. Is there anyone else? Yes, Ms. Wingard. 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Lucinda Wingard. I live on the Gig Harbor Peninsula. Many events in Pierce County, like this one, begin acknowledging that we inhabit land stewarded by the Coast Salish people for many centuries. The import of that acknowledgement should not be lost on us. The indigenous economy understood wealth and communal quality of life comes from the land. Land was not to be owned or controlled by individuals. This county now is under threat of extreme weather events, clogged traffic, homeless encampments, pollution of air and waters, and we pay taxes to restore flood, fire damage, maintain public safety. Land use policies must be fashioned to protect all the residents from economic damage and erosion. And I'm was glad to hear about the park system, and I feel that the parks need to take a role not only to provide human health and access to nature for recreation, but also manage open space as healthy for our native wildlife, our plants and our animals, and provide wildlife corridors and manage wildlife corridors. Okay.
You have a minute and 30 seconds.
All right. I just wanted to remind those people gathered in the council that the United Nations Biodiversity Conference in 2022 came together with a landmark agreement that nature is critical to meeting the sustainable development goals that we have. And Pierce County is well situated to be a part of that. And I was so glad to see that in our proposals for the 2024 land use is that we are looking at managing eventually for biodiversity 100,000 acres, and that can be done through the parks, through individual landowners such as we, the county, but and also the corporations. And so we have lots of wealth here, and we need to preserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wingard. Anyone else in the audience? Yes.
I am also from the Key Peninsula, and I know many of you here. And I'm speaking, a lot of people don't realize. And Austin, I'm so glad you're here. He and I tramped up and down every creek on Vaughan Bay. And this is when he first got with Pierce County. And that is because Pierce County made Vaughan Bay, it was the first protected shellfish area in probably, I know Pierce County, but also in Western Washington. But unfortunately, we are still getting all sorts of permits for people's docks. And people wonder why we don't have any eelgrass. Well, when in 1976, when my parents bought their property there, we had lots of eelgrass. We also had a lot of mussels. And the more docks that went up, after 5 years, the mussels were gone. The eelgrass was moving too. And so it's a real serious problem that one hand of the county doesn't know what the other hand is doing, because they're giving out permits that they need to get together and really look at what's happening. We cannot afford to have any more docks built on Vaughan Bay, because everybody wants a dock, but I'm sorry, everybody can't have one. And also, along with the trees, we have recharging areas. If you have wells, you have to have a recharge area. And you can't build on these recharge areas because the water is not going to go down to the aquifer. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And what takes the water down to the aquifer are our trees, because it takes about 14 years for water to get down to the aquifer. This is the only, unlike here in Tacoma, and Robin is right, we're a very diverse district. You have rivers, you have lakes, and you also have an aquifer in South Tacoma. But we do not. And so we have to really watch our water. And it's going to be a very interesting summer, because last summer we did have wells that did go dry. So recharge areas are something a lot of people don't know about, but we need to know about them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, anyone else to provide public comment? Yes, Mr. Ivey.
Good evening, Council. First off, Councilmember Denson, thank you so much. My name is Tony Ivey. I'm a resident here in the district. I want to thank you so much for having this meeting in district at Point Defiance. It's my favorite place to be in all of Tacoma. And I want to thank you for the very important focus on the environment. probably the best thing I heard was seeing the real impacts of the Climate Commitment Act in CHB's amazing new boat. That's terrific. I've been on their existing boat, and it's always glad to see when you talk about clean energy and innovation being driven, to see an actual tangible benefit of that, a boat that's innovative, being made right here in Tacoma. It's really stunning. I know a lot of the benefits of the Climate Commitment Act really have resulted in great changes for our entire transportation field all over the state. The legendary, Transportation Act that we got passed could not have been done without the funds generated from that. And it's nice to be able to see that here in Tacoma. We see that with the free rides for transit for youth and children. We see that with the CHB boat, which I'm really happy to ride, hopefully. Melissa? Did she slip out? Okay. I'll talk to Melissa about that later. But I really do appreciate that focus. It's bringing it home. It's making it tangible. And I thank you for uplifting those topics here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey. Anyone else here that would like? Yes, Miss Lilienthal. Doing great.
I really appreciate all the comments. I appreciate the council and what you've done for the community, for our entire community. And I loved many of the comments. This was quite an education. One thing that was missing is with all of our pollution and all of our development and saving the trees and all of our environmental issues, light pollution, you're not surprised. As we develop and as we give out permits for development, sometimes I think we forget what the lighting from those developments are penetrating through our homes, through our entire community. And I am suffering from it. I have been for a long time. I'm really angry about it, and nothing's being done. And I think it could be done. So I didn't intend to do this, but y'all gave me some impetus, and I appreciate that. Thank you for listening, and it would be very helpful for whomever is overriding this to take a look in the community and look at all of the different lights that you have intruding into our homes. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Anyone else in the room? Oh, yes, please.
Okay, Jair, help her out. I'm Wendy Wright. I live in Puyallup in the South Hill area, and because of the young man from Stadium High School, we've got to get a handle on uncontrolled growth. South Pierce County is just out of control with housing developments and warehouses, and that brings traffic congestion, air pollution, imperious pavement with excessive runoff, destroying our trees, destroying our habitat. So I really I support option 3 in the comprehensive plan, and I'm asking the council to for future growth, it has to be confined in the urban core, not in unincorporated Pierce County. And thank you for having this forum. I sure learned a lot. It was great.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Anyone else in the room? All right. Oh, Mr. Miller.
Hi, name's Steve Miller. I am the Directing Business Representative for Machinists Union in Seattle. Represent 9,000 employees in the Washington area, Alaska also. This is a great forum. And where unions, and this comes together, it's only been touched on, is there is just a bulging starting industry in the green economy. I'm familiar with the economic plan for Tacoma, and I'm just going to urge the council. It is very, very competitive. This is something the Machinists Union has targeted as an up and growing business. It's a win for everybody where we can attract manufacturers for a green economy supply chain. Tacoma is set for that, but it's going to take a concerted effort from not only with the unions, of course, but city, county, state, congressional. But we are aware from the Machinists Union how competitive it is, not only in Washington State, but it's very, very competitive with other states. So I would just urge you to put that on the front burner because other states are going to gobble us up. It's a win for everybody. So great forum, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, anyone else? Not seeing any in the room. Mr. Weinsbury, do we have anyone on Zoom? If you are on Zoom and you would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry, I took your words, didn't I?
It's your party, ma'am.
That's why we love Jay here.
Let me see. At this time, I see no hands at this time, Chair.
Okay, well, the moment we have all been waiting for. Does anyone have a completely filled in word game? Raise your hand. Okay, if you do, what are we? Oh, okay, then bring them forward. And if we could get Councilmember Jensen from Reston, if she's still here, if she could come forward. Is she not here? Could you bring the cards, the completely filled cards up, please?
You have cards as well. They're in the audience.
And if you have one, raise it up so Mr. Dupuy can pick them up as he comes by. All right, there's a few here. Betty has one. Wendy has one. I think that Dale has one. Councilmember Campbell has one. Anybody else? I didn't get Tide Flats, but I think I must have missed it. All right, I think the Councilmember Jensen. What's that?
Hester brought the first one up. I don't know how we're doing this whole system.
Okay. All right. Who should we have do the drawing? Oh, all right. Maybe we could have our Pierce County deputy come up and do the drawing. Since I'm going to shuffle them. I'm going to turn them upside down. Marty, I need to unfold yours. Nice try making it stand out. All right. Deputy, what's your last name? Blumenshine. Deputy Blumenshine is going to choose one. And if Truitt or Josie, if you could bring up the prize. All right, what is the name on there?
Did they put their name on it?
Let's hope so. Tim. Is there a Tim still here? Did you really? Why did you put Tim? It was Tim's. Okay. Tim, all right, come on up here. And we will award you. Come on up here so we can get it on camera. One more time, I just want to thank the individual who put this together for us, Ginger Krieger, Reston resident and volunteer. Come on up, and this is Tessa. Congratulations. Beautiful. Let's get a photo. Maybe you guys can turn. You can get in it too, Josie. We'll get the council. Council, you want to stand up real quick? Amy, you want to stand up? Smile. Thank you for participating in our completely legal game here tonight. Right? There was a lot of discussion around this game, believe it or not. Okay. And I want to thank Councilmember Hitchen for keeping me on track. Am I missing anything? Okay. Would any of the council members like to make any final comments? We are over time, so I'm going to put that out there and allow anyone to make some final comments. But I am going to say that when we're done, if we could do our socializing outside, because they need to clean up and get the school ready for class tomorrow. Any comments from any of my council member colleagues? Okay, Councilmember Hitchen.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to acknowledge and thank you for doing an excellent job of yet again somehow magically fitting a ton of stuff in a meeting and getting us out of here in almost 2 hours. So well done, and appreciate the timekeeping. Maybe we will eventually not doubt you.
We tried. All right, thank you all for attending, and with that, the District 7 2024 meeting is adjourned.